concerning the blob, this massive blob in the Pacific Ocean. Look at this. Look at the difference in 5 years. This massive blob anomaly has our fingerprints all over it, according to a new study. This is by Tessa Koumoudos on Science Alert. In 2013, a suffocatingly hot blob of water brewed in the Pacific off the coast of North America, and it decimated marine life. Let's remember that in March 2011, we had the Fukushima disaster, radiation pouring into the Pacific Ocean. Kindly support my Patreon account because YouTube has again demonetized my channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. This is what is known as the blob. Thousands of seabirds washed up dead on shores, along with starving baby sea lions, salmon, krill, and other marine animals vanished as the warmth fueled a massive toxic algae bloom that also shut down crab fisheries. Confused summer breeding fish spawned during winter, while lost subtropical species such as the swordfish and the pyrosomes appeared far outside their normal range. Over 100 million Pacific cod are thought to have perished. At its peak, parts of this blob reached almost 4 degrees centigrade above normal water temperatures, and the anomalous pocket of heat persisted up to 2015. Since then, more monstrous hot water blobs have formed in oceans around the world, wreaking havoc on ecosystems and fisheries, and setting back decades of efforts to save species like the humpback whales, whose populations plummeted by 30%. These marine heat waves have also caused mass coral bleaching, melting sea ice, and the release of carbon dioxide from dying seagrass. Now, as we said, they said this started, or they noticed it, 2013. Fukushima was in March of 2011. And if you watch a few videos back behind this one, you'll see that the Japanese authorities want to release more radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean because they have nowhere to store this water. So their solution is to just dump it into the Pacific Ocean. I, for the life of me, can't understand why. But anyway, I believe that this also has a relation with what's happening in the Pacific Ocean and the heating of the water with the blob. Now, concerning this article, the new evidence suggests that the intensity of these events is not just fueled by climate change, it's making the very occurrence of blobs more likely as well. Environmental physicist Charlotte Kufkotter of University of Bern in Switzerland and colleagues studied the marine heat waves recorded between 1981 and 2017. They found the 300 largest events lasted on average 40 days, covered an average of 1.5 million square kilometers, and had a peak temperature of 5 degrees centigrade. So that's a huge amount of difference in the temperature. Focusing on the 7 largest, most recent blobs, the researchers calculated how likely each would have been with or without current global warming. Their analysis, which used conservative estimates of risk attributions, found impactful marine heat waves are now over 20 times more likely because of human-induced climate change. Okay, well, nobody here is obviously talking about what happened with the nuclear power plant and, the earthquake, tsunami, and the Fukushima nuclear plant destruction. And that radioactivity has been ongoing since then. So it's almost, almost 10 years now. Now, the frequency, she says, duration, intensity, and cumulative intensity of large marine heat waves increased during the observational period. This is what they wrote in their paper. She says, before our pollutants started messing with Earth's thermostat, such large and intense marine heat waves occurred only once a few hundred or even 1,000 years. The researchers' model suggests that once we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming, such horrific hot water events could occur up to every decade at worst, and by 3 degrees Celsius they could become as regular as annually. They caution these predictions probably won't hold true if warming stabilizes at these temperatures once the ocean has had time to take up and redistribute more of the heat. Strongly reduced return periods of large marine heat waves will likely push marine organisms and ecosystems beyond their thermal limits and stress tolerance, potentially causing irreversible charges. This is what they wrote in their paper. For not only do these hot water blobs have immediate impacts on marine life, but researchers found a huge and ongoing shift in the affected region's food chain. A reduction of nutrient-rich plankton was replaced by nutrient-poor, gelatinous zooplankton that's likely to have major consequences across the entire food chain, and many reefs that have been impacted will already never recover. Lofcotter and team's findings align with other evidence that these devastating marine heat waves are becoming more typical. A 2018 study showed there was a doubling of marine heat wave days between 1982 and 2016. And oceanographer Andrew Leasing from NOAA said at some point everywhere might look like what we think of today as an anomaly. And this is what he said after also analyzing recent marine heat waves. He said it would not be anomalous anymore. This does not bode well for many of the 3 billion humans that rely on our oceans for income and sustenance. Researchers are developing tools to forecast and track these anomalies, working on ways to better manage these events with fishery industries. But the team concludes to maintain the existence of resilience and productive marine ecosystems and to prevent many oceanic regions from reaching a continuous severe heat wave state, global warming needs to be severely limited. He says, sadly, when it comes to convincing those with the power to make the required meaningful changes, it really feels like we may as well be trying to tell this all to the blob's fictional namesake. The research was published in Science magazine, it's on Science Alert. Notice that there is absolutely no mention of Fukushima. I remember I was near a nuclear power plant in where my sister lived in north of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and I noticed it was winter. It was, well, not winter, it was spring. But I noticed that we were driving around this from one place to the other, and we were driving through the country, and there was a river beside us on the right-hand side of the car. I was in the passenger seat in the back, of course, and I noticed steam coming up from the water. Steam. And in the background were these two huge funnels, as we see in nuclear power plants. And I asked my sister and her husband, what is this steam coming from? So much steam coming from the water of the river. It was like a stream, a generous stream. And they said, oh, sometimes we get superheated water. The water coming out of our taps is a little bit warmer than it should be. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, that's a nuclear power plant. I think it was the Limerick power plant there. And I said, what are you kidding me? I said, huh? Now, look, you and I mean, even if a third grade child knows that if you have steaming water in a river, there's not going to be anything able to live in there. No frogs, no salamanders, no mosquitoes laying their eggs, no fish, nothing. When you have steam coming off of water, that means it's boiling, right? So you can understand how much heat is coming into not only the oceans, but into our rivers and lakes, wherever we have these nuclear power plants. I mean, we don't hear about this, but it's happening. This is happening. And there's no mention, unfortunately, of this occurrence in these scientific studies having to do with man-made climate changes. Okay, the energy industry is very important to us, but what about our environment? And what about scientists being truthful about what can be causing this? All-encompassing reasons, not just the blob and climate change, humans, blah, 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 we terrible humans, what we're doing. What about the radiation that's dumped into all these water systems? Anyway, please leave your comments. I'm sure you have a lot of comments about this. Thank you for your support. I'll leave a link below for you for this.